Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss one of the most important electrotherapy modalities used in physiotherapy, which is TENS, or transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. In this lecture, we will cover the definition of TENS, its basic principle, important parameters, different modes, mechanisms of pain relief, electrode placement, indications, contraindications, clinical application, and finally, we will solve some clinical cases. So let's begin. TENS stands for Transcutaneous Electrical Nerve Stimulation. The word transcutaneous means through the skin. TENS is a non-invasive electrotherapy modality in which electrical pulses are delivered through electrodes placed on the skin to stimulate peripheral nerves and modulate pain. The main clinical purpose of TNS is pain modulation, also known as analgesia. An important point for physiotherapy students is that TNS mainly helps with pain. It should not automatically be considered a treatment for the underlying pathology. Now, let's understand the basic principle of TENS. The TNS unit generates electrical pulses. These electrical pulses are delivered through electrodes placed on the patient's skin. The stimulation activates peripheral sensory nerves. This sensory input is processed by the nervous system through different pain modulation mechanisms. The overall goal is to reduce the patient's perception of pain. So, the basic sequence is electrical stimulation, followed by nerve activation, followed by pain modulation, resulting in reduced pain perception. Why do physiotherapists use TENS? The primary objective is pain reduction. However, pain relief is not the only goal. If a patient's pain decreases, they may tolerate movement better, perform therapeutic exercises more comfortably, and participate more effectively in rehabilitation. Therefore, TENS is generally used as an adjunct to active physiotherapy and rehabilitation. Now let's look at the components of a typical TENS unit. A TENS unit usually contains a stimulator, a display, intensity control, frequency control, pulse duration control, lead wires, and electrodes. The stimulator generates the electrical pulses. The controls allow the physiotherapist to select different stimulation parameters. The lead wires connect the device to the electrodes. Finally, the electrodes transfer the electrical stimulation from the device to the patient's skin. Now let's discuss the important parameters of TENS. This is a very important topic for DPT students. The major TENS parameters include frequency, pulse duration or pulse width, intensity or amplitude, mode, treatment duration, and electrode placement. First is frequency. Frequency is measured in hertz, abbreviated as hertz. Frequency means the number of electrical pulses delivered per second. For example, 50 hertz means approximately 50 pulses per second. Frequency is important because different stimulation frequencies can produce different sensory and physiological responses. The next parameter is pulse duration, also called pulse width. Pulse duration is usually measured in microseconds. It represents the duration of each individual electrical pulse. Pulse duration can influence nerve fiber recruitment, the sensation experienced by the patient, and the amount of intensity required to achieve the desired response. The next parameter is intensity, also called amplitude. Intensity refers to the strength of the electrical stimulation. At a sensory level, the patient usually experiences a strong but comfortable tingling sensation. At a motor level, visible muscle contraction may occur. The appropriate intensity depends on the treatment goal and the patient's tolerance. Treatment duration is another important parameter. There is no single treatment duration that is appropriate for every patient. Treatment duration depends on the TENS mode, the clinical goal, the patient's condition, the patient's response, and the specific device or treatment protocol.